If there's one thing that stays the same, is that everything is always changing. That is some Buddhist wisdom. And I want to go into that a little bit today. And I think I'll start with, the fact that, in fact, it was Nadine who suggested it. She's like, this is a big change for us, doing this together. It's a change for me, noticing and accepting and my capacity. And I think it's a change for her. It's a change for you. I think, I'm not sure if I should mention this, but I think I will. This weekend was Labor Day weekend, and we live in DC. And, we've got visitors, and that might be a welcome change, and that might be an unwelcome change, depending on how you think about things. But we have the National Guard who's been invited or been ordered to come into our town, into our city, and to help keep the peace, so to speak. Or that is the marketing that's been um, created around it. So this weekend we wanted to go downtown and see what it's like. Because in fact, I'll share this part. My mom told me she was on the phone with maybe a tech person who happened to be in Oklahoma, and he was offering his condolences that she lives in DC and how scary it must be here. I think she let him have it. It is certainly very unsettling, reading the newspaper on an intellectual level. It is very unsettling. But we wanted to see for ourselves, because we've never really thought of the National Mall as a dangerous place. So we went down and we were walking around, and as you might expect, we ran into a couple of groups of very friendly and kind National Guardsmen who were very helpful and sweet. Um, and then we ran into tourists, and then we walked through the monuments, and it was all very peaceful and lovely. And one poignant point of that walk was when we walked through the FDR Memorial, which many of you have probably walked through yourselves. Maybe some of you haven't. It's a beautiful memorial with a lot of quotes from FDR, very peaceful. There's a lot of fountains. And reading those quotes, they're full of humanity. They're gorgeous quotes on caring for each other in a really meaningful way, which naturally causes your mind to then move into comparative mode, right? And compare it with, the kind of the modern style of politics, which is very performative and very much gauged to elicit strong responses in us. And, there's something about that comparison that feels very unsettling and very difficult. And so that change of there was a part of me that was, I could hear it inside of my head. I wish things could go back to normal. God, I wish things would just go back to normal. Whatever that means. I don't know what that means. I think that's a statement that's full of delusion, right? Because there is no normal. There's just a flow of uh, experiences, and we tend to fixate on the things that feel right, that feel good, and then we want them to be that way forever, and we don't ever want them to change. That's very normal. Change, especially when it's not going our way, brings a lot of discomfort. Um, so And I'll just mention briefly that so I want to share some I want to share some Buddhist wisdom on change. And I also do want to really make sure that it's clear that, when discomfort comes, like, so there is something changing and we feel the discomfort of it, it's really, really important to honor that. Like, cry the tears if you need to cry the tears. In fact, it's highly recommended to cry the tears for that which you feel is lost. It's just a critical point, a critical step on the journey out of suffering. And not to spend too much time on that. Not to spend too much time. And the only person who knows how much time is to be spent is you. Right? But there's a point at which now the crying is no longer supportive, and we need to move into something else. We need to move into a reorientation so as to regain our grounding, to regain our freshness so that we can show up, because we need to show up. So, looking into the Buddhist canon, change is really at the heart of his teachings. And I'll quote for you a passage from the Dhammapada, and it's the Dhammapada 277. He says, all conditioned things are impermanent. All conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. All conditioned things are impermanent. So what does that mean? What does that mean? All conditioned things are impermanent. Breaking it down, conditioned is a term you will hear often when Buddhists are explaining things. It's a term that means anything that arises due to causes and conditions. Anything that arises due to causes and conditions is called conditions. So what does that mean? For example, you are an example of a conditioned thing. Your parents met up one day. I don't know what year your parents met up. I don't know what year my parents met up. They met up and they joined together, and there you are. Now you exist. Because of that moment when your mom and your dad met and joined up, now you exist. So you are a conditioned thing. Your mother and father each are a conditioned thing because they too depend on the conditions that came before them. So this is a conditioned thing. A glass of water is a conditioned thing. It required the faucet to be there, and the faucet required the water main, which required the water treatment plant, which required the Potomac River, and so on and so forth until you get to the clouds, the atmosphere of the planet itself, the universe. So water is a conditioned thing. So you can sort of see where I'm going. Each thing that comes before something in existence is known as the condition for it. And so what relies on conditions to be in existence? Everything. Everything, right? So conditioned things are things that depend on something else to exist, and it includes everything. And alternately, what things do not depend on other things for their existence? Like, what thing that you can think of does not rely on something else for its existence. Like there's nothing. Um, Although I will say now there is something very important. It's known as the unconditioned, but I'll leave that for another day and maybe for a specialist, the unconditioned. But for our intents and purposes, these are conditioned things. And what you, as you contemplate it, you realize that the conditions for any one thing to exist are so complex. They're so interconnected, right? That it's utterly unstable. Like, think about it if one thing were different. Like, I think about if I had taken a different job than the one that I took when I was trying to earn a little extra money to get to college, get to the design school, I would never have met my husband. We would never have had this life. We've never had these children because of that one tiny little moment. All conditioned things are impermanent. And you'll see where we're going with this regarding change. So impermanence, all conditioned things are impermanent. Impermanence is, again, you've heard me talk about this many times. It's one of the three marks of existence, and it's the foundation for this path of releasing ourselves from our suffering. And it just means that everything is always on the move. Everything is always changing. So something arises, it persists, and it ends. So you put something into your mouth, you have this experience, it persists while you're chewing, then you swallow it down, and then it's gone. Like everything is like that. You have energy, you wake up in the morning, you have a cup of coffee, you have some energy, and then it kind of dwindles some point later in the day. And that burst of energy is now gone. Like everything follows this pattern. There's like with us, we're born, and then our life persists. Here we are, we're alive, and then we pass away. We're just following this really natural pattern of existence. It's very natural. So just, the Buddha was pointing out that nothing is permanent. Nothing. This law of impermanence applies to everything. And I actually wanted to read something that I read that was so beautiful. I'm reading a great book called The Trauma of Everyday Life, which I don't know if you feel it, but I sure do. It's an amazing book by Mark Epstein. He's a real leader in the teaching and psychology. So Mark writes, I once had the chance to speak with a renowned Thai forest master named Ajahn Chah. It was more than 30 years ago, but I remember his words as if it were yesterday. I was traveling in Asia with some of my teacher friends, and we had made our way to Ajahn Chah's monastery in the border of Thailand. He met with us after we shared lunch. We asked him to explain his Buddhist view. What had he learned from his many years of contemplation and study? What could we bring back to share with the West? This is one of the guys who brought this goodness to us, all of this stuff that we get to benefit from. What could we bring back from Ajahn Chah? His answer touched my own sense of residual trauma, my own fear of everything burning. Before saying a word, he motioned to a glass at his side. Do you see this glass? He asked us. I love this glass. It holds the water admirably. When the sun shines on it, it reflects the light beautifully. When I tap it, it has a lovely ring. Yet for me, this glass is already broken. When the wind knocks it over, or my elbow knocks it off the shelf, and it falls to the ground and shatters, I say, of course. But when I understand that this glass is already broken, every minute with it is precious. He says that wisdom struck him deeply and stayed with him over the years. I'm looking at the time. I think I'll finish this portion. That's not nearly what I wanted to share, as you can imagine. Um, I can feel my own resistance to change. I feel it poignantly in my chest and my throat, when things are no longer going my way, whether it's my body or my world, or ironically, it's not my body, it's not my world, it's the body, it's the world. And it's good to know that this this ache is really it's natural, it's normal, and there is the possibility to transcend it slowly but surely by understanding, by leaning into the nature of reality in this way, by finding teachings like this one. All conditioned things are subject to impermanence. Like spending time contemplating that and noticing it in your everyday life um, really helps you. It helps you to let go of things that need to be let go of, which gives you more energy to do the things that you need to do, maybe to make the change that you want to see with your using your own volition. I think what I'll do, I have this beautiful list of things, ideas on how to cultivate acceptance. I got it from a cool website called The Buddhism Way. Really nice. Like, for example, noticing small changes in life. Like, don't judge them as good or bad, just notice them with our daily mindfulness. Like the change in you get the hot coffee in the morning, so you notice it's hot, and then notice as it cools down. Notice that change. Notice how things arise, persist, and pass. Everything does. So, noticing these events and having that awareness, really making it a part of how you walk through the world.